Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday, December the 4th, the last day of class. How's it feel?
Sad.
Sad?
Like
Happy?
I miss you so much.
Oh, you don't have to. You don't have to go. You don't have to go that far. You don't have to go that far. It's not going to affect how I mark your final paper, so you don't have to
I take it back then.
butter me up. Yeah, it seems like it went fast this term. I don't know why it seemed to go so fast, but I think we had a bit of fun. History is fun, is it not?
Yeah, that I agree.
As Aliana stifles a laugh.
Covered a lot of stuff.
What's that?
We've covered a lot of stuff over one, two, and
We've
then
we've covered a lot of stuff, but we've also missed a lot of things, right? There's a lot of, like we didn't deal at all with China. What's that?
The Vietnamese.
Yeah, so the Vietnam War we kind of left out. China was left out entirely. In this phase of world history, Africa is kind of totally left out in almost every case except for when the Allies are fighting in North Africa. But there's really no mention of anything going on in Africa during this entire 100-year period. I assume because nothing was happening, right?
They're a peaceful country.
Something.
There were some proxy wars.
Something was happening, but of course it's not. Yeah, it's funny. It's not funny, but it's not included in the 20th century, right? India gains its independence in the 20th century. Didn't talk about that. Pakistan, Bangladesh, those appear in, or those there's some events regarding those countries in 20th century. What's that? Yeah, apparently Iran had some sort of revolution, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we just didn't talk about, right? What's that?
Iranian revolution, I heard about
Hmm?
that.
It's-
Is this textbook written in a Canadian perspective?
It is, and if you look, that's a good question. Is the textbook written in a Canadian perspective? And it is, and you'll notice if you still have it, which you probably don't. Although if you do have it, people, if you have the copy of the textbook, next time you're in the college, can you please bring it back so we can use it again? It's not yours to keep. I'm sure you want to keep it as a treasured memory, but that's not what it's for. So if you can please bring it back next time you're here, that'd be really nice. Thank you. Yeah, if you look inside the front cover, you'll see that it's written by people from Canada and people from Western Canada specifically. So it does have a very it has a Western perspective, it has a Canadian perspective, and it even has a Western Canadian perspective within it. So it's very much a textbook that's written by and for people from this part of the world.
When was its research?
Oh no, it's I think it's from the late 1990s.
Is it still used in school?
I think it's we're using that textbook because we have a set of them. I don't feel that it's that bad in terms of, like, it doesn't perfectly align with the curriculum because the curriculum for grade 12 is new as of last year, I think. So it's not perfectly in step with it, but it's still not bad. I mean, and especially with history, a lot of things, that happened still happened. we can write another textbook, but Hitler still invaded Poland in 1939, right? That still happened. So it's in some ways it's a little out of step, but in other ways it does give us the background to start talking about things, and I can always supplement with my slides and videos and things like that. And so I think it's okay. I might look at getting another one maybe next time I teach this class. What's that? Yeah, maybe.
Well, what course are they teaching
What's that?
next time? What course are they teaching
Next term I switch back to social justice and comparative
next time?
cultures.
So you teach every time.
Social justice runs every term, yeah, and then the other two alternate.
So there's no history.
Don't you take university courses? I thought that you took university courses.
I normally do. I teach one university course a year normally, but not this year probably because our enrollment is down. So I'm kind of leaving the anthropology courses to the real anthropologists, and so
But if an anthropologist,
You
you
still
have
see
to-
Ross when you see that one. When you see that
he's a
one.
paleontologist. It's totally different. Totally different. Um,
So Rossientologist is about dinosaurs, archaeology.
Anthropology, it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, paleontology looks at kind of ancient animal forms of life. Archaeology is the study of human behavior in the past.
So which one looks at dinosaurs?
That's paleontology.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So Ross is the dinosaur guy. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm usually I teach one a year, but because we have kind of lower enrollment than we've had in the past, I'm not teaching it probably until our numbers come back up a bit, or until one of those guys needs a break, and then maybe I'll pick it up. But
Also, you're planning to take it on.
I don't know when I don't know when I'll get it back. For the short term, probably not for a little while. But
Someone's still waiting for you.
what's that?
Someone's still waiting for you.
No, it should go to the people in that department. Like I'm really like a high school teacher. I just kind of pick up the anthro course once a year because I like it, I enjoy teaching it, and it's a little extra money. So sometimes sometimes I do it. I just do one here and there, but really I'm a high
Is it
school.
only the first semester you take it? Or no?
What's that?
Is it only for the first semester? Who comes in?
Well, is
Like
only
newcomers, like, in university courses, is it like just one semester?
I don't understand.
You take the subject just for in first year or second year?
No, there are first and second year courses at Columbia
Yeah.
College. I only teach the first year one.
Oh.
I've taught a second year one once, but that course kind of belongs to someone else, so I just covered for him.
How many years of this
How many years of what
should you do?
should you do? Like, should you do?
Like
Or-
in general?
I don't understand what you're asking.
Well, you can do up to 2 years here.
2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, you can do
but
2 years
don't
here.
have to.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I love it when I clean my glasses.
Huh?
Love it when I clean my glasses.
Okay. Let's move on here, okay? Let's move on. So, what will we learn? I'm about to tell you. I'm going to say good morning to some people here. Michaela's here for the last time. Good morning, Michaela. As is Ananda. Good morning, Ananda. Ty's here. Good morning, Ty. And Kevin is here. Good morning, Kevin. Ashley's here. Hi, Ashley. Rose is here. Good morning, Rose. Hadil is here. Good morning, Hadil. Shania is here. Hi, Shania. And Ryan is here. Good morning. And Beatrice is here. Good morning, Bea. Okay. I know. Well, it's our last time in history anyway. Okay.
I haven't met some student yet, in real life.
Yeah, there's a bunch of students I haven't met in real life.
But isn't it weird? You have to mark someone you never met.
Yeah, it's weird. The whole thing's weird. The pandemic is weird. Everything's weird. You're weird. You're weird. No, I know. I know that.
Oh, I saw that you changed the profile picture.
I did.
It's really sad.
I did. Nah, it's okay.
What happened? No, it was a cat, picture of a cat. Yeah. And then he changed it to this picture. This picture. Yeah.
Yeah, the cats.
I prefer the cats.
The cat's enough of a celebrity. Okay, here we go. So, political and economic problems in the 1990s. So, again, we had Boris Yeltsin creating the Russian Federation by stealing it out from under the nose of Mikhail Gorbachev and the Soviet Union. But even though there were very high hopes when the Russian Federation became its own country, those hopes weren't immediately realized, right? And so democracy was kind of stumbling along, but without any clear constitution or kind of way of doing things. People had an expectation that, a switch to a market economy would immediately raise their standard of living, and again, that wasn't true. And in fact, their standard of living probably decreased in the short term. When we get to sort of modern days, their standard of living has undoubtedly increased since Soviet times, but I wouldn't say that it's on par with some of the Western nations. And so they still kind of lag behind a little bit. And again, the market is kind of a wild west with no regulations, and people are buying things and selling things and producing things and embezzling things, and there's all kinds of things happening that are make the economic situation chaotic in Russian Federation. We see that Yeltsin is kind of increasingly throughout the years of his presidency facing opposition, and so at one point he has to stop a coup, so armed communists try to take over the government and he has to kind of repel them, and a number of people are killed. And sorry, I'm just going to jump ahead because we've seen some of this. We said that his economic reforms were kind of titled shock therapy, right? And so basically what he did was he changed a lot of things really quickly I think in the expectation that he would just turn the economy loose, right? Like all of this central planning and control by the Communist Party had basically dragged everyone down. So he was just going to cut everybody loose, and then everybody could go off and produce and work and make money, and everything would be great, right? But again, it didn't quite work like that, right? What?
Why didn't it work?
It doesn't work because people in the Russian Federation have no experience with capitalism and running private business. They don't really know how it works, and they don't really have a good sense of how to do it. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Again, they raised credit so nobody could borrow any money to kind of start a business or get a business going. Any subsidies that they got from the state were suddenly gone, and so some businesses that might have been viable went bankrupt immediately and collapsed. Inflation was high, their currency was devalued, people lost their savings, people were out of work, and it was just chaotic, right? And again, you can't have a good economy when people aren't working, because people who aren't working don't spend money. And if they're not spending money, you don't have an economy. So you really need people to be working and earning money. And unfortunately, some of the things that Yeltsin did here caused industries and businesses to collapse, putting thousands, probably millions of people out of work. And again, that's not good for your economy. Your people have to be going to work and earning a paycheck so that they can spend.
The Great Depression?
Was
Was it that bad?
I would say in some ways it was worse.
It was worse than that?
But again, it was very unequal in terms of who was affected. And so again, we said some people were destroyed by this, and some people were able to come out of this with huge amounts of money, right? So again, we said prices go up, the currency is devalued, subsidies are gone, welfare is gone, right? So all of these old people, old pensioners who were getting money from the Soviet state, suddenly where's the money going to come from, right? Their subsidies are ended, their welfare is ended, right? And so lots of things, an entire way of life for these people comes to a halt immediately, and they have to try to adapt. And so again, it's, shock therapy is probably a valid description, because I think a lot of people were probably shocked by what they were having to go through. We said, yeah, their GDP falls by 50%, 50. That's massive, right? I said, usually in a country, you want to grow at like 1% or maybe 2% every year if you're lucky. If it goes down at all, people don't like that. It's bad for the economy. Having it drop by 50% is catastrophic, right? It's catastrophic.
So, is Yeltsin dead now?
He is. He is dead. I had a title card for him. Let me just see if it's still in this presentation or if I deleted it. Yeah, it's not in this one. I think he has died, unfortunately.
What made that so bad? Suddenly, out of nowhere, the GDP dropped by 50%.
What made it that bad? The fact that
It was a revolution.
y-
It's
y-
a revolution, but it shouldn't be that bad. The GDP shouldn't be that bad.
well, this is the thing: is that economies are very difficult to control, right? And many people, economists will argue back and forth about all kinds of things, and some things we know and some things we don't know about economies, but they're difficult to manage even in the best of times. So even in Canada, a lot of thought and discussion and government policy goes into just trying to keep the economy pointed in the right direction and slowly growing, right? So that doesn't sound like a very exciting or ambitious goal, but even just doing that requires a lot of discussion and management and policy decision. What they're trying to do here is they're trying to convert one economy into another one almost instantaneously. And it just, again, it cannot be done. Like, you just can't change that quickly, but also nobody really knows how to do it because nobody's ever done this before. And so, the Soviet Union isn't in a good place, or Russia isn't in a good place to do it anyway, because they were really struggling going into this, right? They had food shortages, they were borrowing money that they could never repay. The economy was bad to start with, and so they didn't even have kind of a strong, stable footing to jump into capitalism. They were, their economy was stagnating already, and then they tried to switch it over. And so, it's a mess, and you can't do this sort of thing. But again, nobody really knew how to do it at the time.
He died on 23rd of April
2007?
2007.
Yeah. We said that some of these oligarchs, some of these super rich guys come out of this period, and they managed to get their hands on huge state enterprises, so companies and resource sectors that were owned by the government. These guys managed to get control of it either through this voucher system that we talked about yesterday, or by kind of loaning money to the government in exchange for access to even more resources and companies. And so, again, Yeltsin's attempts to get public assets into private hands actually, well, it works, but it doesn't really distribute things in any sort of equitable manner. A few people wind up with just about everything. Not just about everything. A few people wind up with a massive amount of wealth and capital. And again, these guys are going to be called the oligarchs. They're still around. They're wildly wealthy. And again, they're a major power within Russia. And so Yeltsin had to deal with them and managed to get the support of some of them, and he gained office that way. But
How did Yeltsin deal with these rich people?
well,
Control over the
Well, at the time, I don't think he had a lot of control over them. I think he was kind of, once they sort of consolidated their financial empires, he was kind of at their mercy a little bit, or he needed them more than they needed him. But that relationship still continues in that they're so powerful that Putin, or whoever winds up being the president, really has to cooperate with these guys
They're
because,
still there?
huh?
These people are still there?
Yeah.
They did become rich because of Yeltsin.
They did become rich because of Yeltsin, but not on.
They just took advantage of the situation.
Yeah, he wasn't really trying to enrich them, I don't think. But they were just fortunate in that there was enough. The situation, they were able to sort of manipulate it to their advantage. But again, not everyone was able to do that.
Can't Putin just confiscate their stuff?
Well, we'll talk about that today. But but Putin has to find a way to manage these guys because, again, they're immensely wealthy and immensely powerful as a result. So we said Boris Yeltsin stepped down in 1999. He was his popularity had declined, his sort of prestige had declined. He was facing corruption charges. He was not well. He had a pretty serious drinking problem, as you kind of saw in the video yesterday. He was at that public event and was clearly hammered, right? And so not good. And he steps down, paving the way for this guy here, right? What did we learn about him yesterday? He's the man of Russia. He does cultivate a certain image, does he not?
I believe he's the richest guy in the world. I believe that.
Probably not the richest guy, but he's a lot richer than he appears, I would think.
Yeah, he's a lot richer than he appears. He hides all the money.
Yeah, he seems to be apparently wealthy, although finding his wealth is difficult to establish. He is the most interesting man in the world, or at least that's the persona he creates, right? And so there's lots of photo opportunities of him riding a horse, shirtless, and diving in submarines, and rescuing bears, and doing all kinds of manly, exciting things. Yeah, there's all sorts of that stuff. Yeah, he's ex-KGB. He tried to join very early on.
He was a former KGB.
He tries to join the KGB very early, but he's not allowed because you're 16. But he eventually does join the KGB. Works in East Germany, right? And then once the wall falls, he's kind of out of a job. Heads back to St. Petersburg, and then what happens?
His friend, the mayor, chooses him as his deputy.
Mm-hmm.
He started giving away stuff to trust companies.
Yep.
He smuggles his boss out of Russia.
Smallest what?
Smuggles his boss out of Russia. Then he finds his way to the Kremlin. Then Boris Yeltsin is so drunk that he can't stand anymore, so he stands instead of him.
Right. And there you have it. Well, yeah, and that's where we are. Yeah. So he becomes deputy mayor of St. Petersburg, right, in the early 90s. His old law professor and mayor of St. Petersburg, Anatoly Sobchak, taps Putin to be deputy mayor. And as deputy mayor, Putin has a lot of control of money and access, right? And so foreign companies that want to come to St. Petersburg need his okay, right? Need the permission of the mayor. And he's trying to buy a bunch of things for the city. So he has control of the finances. And it seems what was happening is that he may have been accepting bribes for access for foreign companies, while at the same time he was embezzling money by paying out contracts to companies that really didn't exist, right? They just existed on paper and they were owned by his friends, probably. So he seems to have enriched himself and kind of made a lot of connections with prominent businessmen, with foreign interests, and probably with the Russian mafia in this kind of crazy period coming up to the end of the Soviet Union, right? And then again, his boss is facing corruption charges, and Putin expertly gets him spirited out of the country on a private plane, and then Sobchak turns up in Paris looking very much healthy and alive. And yeah, and so Putin gets this reputation of, oh, he's a guy that won't turn in his boss, right? And so if the boss gets out of power, Putin won't turn around and send him to jail. And again,
It shows that he's a really honorable person.
well, honorable is questionable, but he's loyal, right? He's loyal to the boss. And again, when Boris Yeltsin is facing corruption charges and he's worried that his successor might try to send him to jail, people in his camp say, hey, here's a guy who will not turn you in. He'll stay loyal to the boss, right? And so,
No, and he has quite a bit of documentaries.
and yeah, and he commissioned his own documentary, right?
Boris Yeltsin is still alive.
No, he's dead. Yeah, so he commissioned his own documentary, right? Which is twice. Yeah, I don't know. Is that kind of weird? Is that
It's not so
narcissistic?
clear because you are not prisoner.
I don't know. Would you commission a documentary about yourself?
If you think you are a nice guy, you know, you're the motivation.
Adel,
That's like
the story of a man or something. I don't know. I don't know what you want to call it. You wouldn't do that?
shouting in the middle of the street. Oh, here I am. Look at me.
Yeah, it's a bit of an attention
Attention
bid
seeker.
for attention, right?
But
I don't
he
know.
came from jobless to the president, so he should be.
Why would
But
you do
it is still weird. It doesn't make it any less weird.
It's not something that most people do.
I mean, if you really want it, then you can talk to someone, kind of lie to them.
You can just do
Commission
interviews
the
and everything.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that if you make your own documentary, you can really control how you look, right? You can look super cool in a documentary that you create.
And you might not be that cool.
No, the documentary we're watching, it was not created by him, and he doesn't look that cool so far, right?
Not cool at all.
No. Okay, so where we left off yesterday was this exact spot, right? And so Yeltsin was declining in power, facing some corruption charges. He needed somebody to kind of have his back, if you will. And so here's the perfect guy to have your back because we know he's loyal to the boss and he won't turn you in, right? And so he gets picked as Boris Yeltsin's successor, but as they pointed out in the documentary yesterday, the problem was that he had to get elected first, right? You can't have a political position unless you're an elected member of the government, right? And so Putin has to get elected. But as they pointed out in the documentary, at this point, nobody has any idea who this guy is, right? He's a nobody, if you will, to the Russian people anyway. So let's continue. Let's see. Yeah, we're gonna watch the rest of it. Okay. So online people we watched 15 minutes yesterday. So watch from 15 minutes to the end, and then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and discuss what we've seen. Okay. Because I think there's like 30 minutes left. So it's a short one. It's a 45-minute thing. So start from 15 minutes and watch until the end, and then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back here and discuss. Okay. Okay, and we're back. So, that was quite a little expose of our friend Vladimir Putin, right? And so, yesterday we sort of reviewed, or we learned that we kind of learned a bit of his backstory, right? Where he comes from, his KGB roots, his early work in the mayor's office of St. Petersburg, and some of the crimes that he was accused of as when he held that position. But of course, they were never prosecuted, right? And so those investigations were quashed, or people who started looking into him found themselves dead or going to jail, right? And today we saw a few things, right? We said that once he was appointed as PM, he of course needed to get some public profile, and conveniently we had apartment bombings in Russia, right? That killed a lot of people, and Vladimir Putin is able to position himself as the avenger, right? The strong man who's going to, hunt down these awful terrorists, and I was going to say bring them to justice, but he didn't say they were going to bring them to justice. He said they were going to waste them in the outhouse, right? So strong language, right? But what's that? Or in the toilet, yeah. So pretty strong language, but again, it works, right? People are upset and outraged and afraid, and so here is this, especially in contrast to Yeltsin, who was kind of, drunkenly staggering through the last years of his presidency, as they say. Here's this young, strong ex-KGB guy is like, we're going to get these guys, right? These guys will not get away with this, and that's what people want to hear, right, after something like this. But of course, the question was, after all this time, who actually did this? Because people were sent to jail, but they weren't Chechens. They waged an entire war on Chechnya, which is actually, do you know anything about Chechnya? It's kind of an area to the south of Moscow. It's kind of around it's in the Caucasus region, in a mountainous region in southern Russia, and it has the Chechens are kind of a distinct cultural, ethnic, religious group, and so they're not Russians. They're kind of ethnically different, and for a long time they have fought for their independence and wanted their independence. And it's still a kind of an open question, but they've never really wanted to be part of Russia. They've wanted to be on their own, but they've never been able to extricate themselves from Russia. And there's been wars fought over this. And anyway, they're the ones who are blamed for this terrorist act, and a military invasion follows. And so again, people go to jail. Lots of people are killed in this military invasion, but we never really get to know who's behind it. And of course, the documentary suggests that in fact it may have been ordered all the way from the top, which is a heinous crime, right? To blow up a building full of your own innocent citizens as a move, right? As a political move to, give you an excuse to be the nation's hero, right? Like, ugh, awful. So I'm just going to, let me just check what my slides are here. I just want to remember what I've got. Because this was originally from the text, but I'm not going to have you read it.
There's one thing about Putin. Oh, right. Chechnya. Is it like Russia is all around it? It's a spot in the middle of Russia?
I don't think
Doesn't the textbook say it was enclaved by Russia?
It might be. I'm not sure exactly where kind of the boundaries of what you call Chechnya is. It may very well be that it is kind of landlocked within Russia. But to the amount that I know about it is that it's a very mountainous place, and again, it has a distinct kind of ethnic, cultural, religious population. And again, they're not Russians. They've never wanted to be a part of Russia, and they still don't. But they've never been able to get out. And maybe the fact that they don't have any exterior border has made it much difficult for them. So that's possible. So here we have this guy, right? So he's in 2000 he becomes president, and the documentary here is accusing him of, you know, trying to create a democratic system that he could control, right? And as time has gone on, his control has increased, has grown more and more, right? And so now he kind of has control over the oligarchs. He has control over maybe the Russian mafia. He certainly has firm control of the government itself. And so Russia as a democracy is kind of a, according to the documentary here, it's kind of a sham, right? And so the researcher at the beginning said, you know, we should not look at Russia as a democracy that's failing. We should look at it as an authoritarian state that is succeeding. And so the democracy thing, it's not that they're failing to do democracy, it's that they don't really want to do it. And they just are putting on a show for the people and for other countries, but that's not what's going on. And so,
Yeah, I found with Chechnya.
yeah,
It's just north of Georgia.
Yep.
the Caspian Sea.
yeah,
It's like Chechnya, a bit of Russia, the sea, or Russia,
Hmm.
Georgia, or Russia.
so they're kind of stuck in the middle.
Yeah, we just have a little border with Georgia.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Is he yet the president?
Huh?
Is he yet the president?
Is he still the president? Yeah. So this is what happened. He became president in 2000. He did 2 4-year terms, and after that he wasn't allowed to do any more terms. So the Russian constitution at the time said that you could not do more than 2 consecutive terms. So he did his 2 4-year terms as president, and then he did a little switcheroo. And so he got his good friend Dmitry Medvedev, who you saw walking down the stairs with him. He got Medvedev elected as president, and Medvedev, what's that?
Was there another candidate?
Probably. But he got him elected, and then he got Medvedev to make Putin prime minister. And so they did that for 4 years, and then they switched around again, and Putin got himself elected in 2012 with 63% of the vote.
So people yet believe that he's not trying but killing them?
No, but this is the thing, right? Is that, you know, in terms of the apartment bombing, everyone who the crime scene was destroyed, right? As the documentary points out, so investigators couldn't actually do a proper investigation. People who were asking questions and investigating on their own got sent to jail, like that former FSB guy. All of the evidence was pretty quickly destroyed after the fact, and the paperwork was destroyed. And people who asked questions about it in the government were told, we don't pursue criminal investigations where the president is concerned. So they were basically told to stop it.
And the people yet voted for him.
What's that?
And people yet voted for him.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that they mention it very quickly, but the Russian government has control over much of the Russian media. So a lot of what people hear and see on television and read in the newspaper is controlled by the government.
So they were bombing some people.
Yeah, they took back a piece from Ukraine.
Yeah.
I remember that war actually. Remember
That was just a couple of years ago.
there was a news report on TV, and I remember like they showed some Russian soldiers underneath the snow.
Well, that was the thing, right? Is that it was supposed to be pro-Russian separatists who took part of Ukraine back for Russia. But of course, they were using Russian weapons and probably Russian military expertise as well. And so we have that situation. So he basically invaded and took a piece of a country away, which you cannot do, but he did it and managed to get away with it. In the process, they shot down an airliner full of innocent people by accident, of course. Huh?
237.
Yeah. But yeah, by accident. But of course, it's a big accident. Nobody has been made responsible for that. And so again, this is what they say at the end of the documentary. He's managed to get away with a lot of things, right? He took a piece of your Ukraine back. Nobody did anything. He is implicated in shooting down an airliner full of innocent people. Nothing's really happened. He has been waging a cyber war on democratic nations trying to disrupt their elections. And he did it in the last election, and they tried to do it this election too. And has anything happened to Russia because of it? No. And in fact, Trump has gone out of his way to kiss Vladimir Putin's butt, right? And so why is not entirely clear yet, but again, he has managed to kind of overstep a number of rules of kind of global diplomacy, and nobody is holding him to account, right? Nobody's making him accountable for this. But again, the question that they ask at the end of this documentary is, what is his end game here? What's he ultimately going to do? Because in some ways he's stuck, right? He's made so many enemies, and he's got so many kind of crimes and skeletons in his closet. The only thing protecting him from big trouble is the fact that he's the president of Russia and he is so powerful. But if he weren't president of Russia anymore, he would be very vulnerable, right? Just like Boris Yeltsin was, right? Boris Yeltsin was going to step down, but he was very vulnerable because he was implicated in all these financial irregularities, quote unquote. So Boris Yeltsin kind of found a way out in appointing Putin to succeed him, but not pursue criminal charges against him. But the question is, what's Putin going to do? And recently, Putin just had the Russian constitution amended so that he can stay in power until...
2024.
No, that's what they said here, but I think it's longer now. What's that?
Yeah, 36.
36?
What? 2000?
Yeah. So that he got the Russian constitution amended so that he can remain in power until 2036.
How many twists is that to 2026? Change something like,
Yeah.
Still lying.
The law has been changed to allow him, and
what's the new law then?
that's the new law, is that he can remain in power until 2036.
So no one says anything.
No, the people voted for it, because for the most part, there are people that demonstrate against him, but for the most part, people love him.
For obvious reasons.
What-
Making Russia look like a real big, strong.
He's very good at image management. He's very good at distraction. He's very good at, when things aren't looking good at home, kind of picking a fight with someone else and then making it seem like, he's the defender of Russia. He's very good at it. And again, in a way, it's probably worth saying that he is cut from the same cloth in a way as Trump is. Because I think Trump would like to do what Vladimir Putin is doing,
Yeah.
but Trump's not smart enough. Yeah, but Putin is not dumb.
Trump is just
The
honest.
airliner they shot down, was that Ukrainian?
It was a Malaysian Airlines flight, but it was flying from, I forget where it was flying from. Do you have it there, Aliana?
Do you have Putin's Instagram?
No. If you look up flight MH13 and then Ukraine, maybe you'll find out. I don't remember where the flight was going to and coming from.
This guy really knows how to make his allies do what they have to survive.
Yeah.
They're their allies. They're doing
What? MH13, I think it was.
they're doing the exact same thing. Even like a year ago, they shot down a Ukraine airline. Like the plane was under Ukraine air. They shot it down, and they said, "Well, oops, you made a mistake." They discovered it.
Yeah, unfortunately that happens, right? Airliners get shut down. One got shot down during the Cold War, right, by accident, where a plane drifted off course and the Soviets shot it down. And in this case, I'm sure it was an accident as well. I'm sure it was incompetence.
The Americans shot them down over the Gulf,
Over what?
over the Persian Gulf. The
Right.
Americans,
Yeah.
they also shot them down.
Anyway, Trump is cut from kind of the same cloth as Putin, and I think he would like to be able to do what Putin does. But again, he's not. The United States is not a corrupt state to begin with, so Trump's got more work to get where Putin is. But again, he's not as clever as Putin either. And again, Putin's been trained to do this, right? In the KGB, he's been trained to be manipulative and to be able to read people psychologically and to sort of plan things out in a Machiavellian fashion. Yeah, he can be a dangerous guy to deal with, and that's what I think the documentary is saying. Now that we know who this guy is, what does he want, and how are we going to deal with him? And so far, I don't think we've dealt with him at all. I think we've there have been a few sanctions against Russia, but most people haven't really stepped up to the plate in terms of challenging him. What's that? Oh, it's 17? Do you know where it was coming from? Or going to?
It's
Well-
from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur? And that's where we're flying to there or from there?
From Amsterdam.
To Amsterdam, okay.
No, from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur.
Okay. Ayushi asks here, yeah, what happens if Putin dies before 2036?
If France comes into power,
It's a good question. It's a good question, right?
he's gonna die soon.
It's
He's young.
Prime Minister, as that would be like his new
Yeah.
president or something.
I,
They'll wait till the end of the term.
there'll be a constitutional succession. So if the president's not, if he dies or he's not able to be in office, somebody will step in. But I mean, for Putin, that's kind of a best case scenario, because then he gets out without any, he'll never have to spend any time in a jail cell. He'll never be executed by who knows who.
Jail.
What?
Who put him in the jail? I think there's no one who's
Shouldn't he retire now? He's 68.
yeah, our prime minister is like 70 something.
Yeah, but he looks pretty good for 68.
He does.
I think he takes pretty good care of himself.
Yeah, and
Photos of the force.
Yeah, he's not
good doctors,
he's not going to die anytime soon, I don't think.
That's just sad.
Bad people doesn't die. That is.
But we'll see. Russian men tend to die quite early.
They play with guns.
Okay. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of our course. We've spent 13 weeks looking at the history of the 20th century, and it's been a bit of a wild ride, right? There have been two massive global conflicts in terms of world wars. There's a Cold War where two ideologically different powers built enough weapons to destroy the Earth several times over and managed not to do it. We had new political and economic systems appear and collapse. We had new countries created and destroyed. Newer countries have been created. Millions of people have died. Technology has vastly increased from, when we started out in 1914 at the beginning of World War I, those guys were going to war on horseback, right? Yeah, they went to war on horseback with swords, still, and what's that? It's so cool. Kind of pointless in World War I, but still, they had horses and swords, and we come out of the 20th century with nuclear weapons and autonomous drones and guided missiles, and not to mention communication technologies where you know, the people were still like telegraphing and Morse coding people to what's that? Yeah, well, television in general, right? Radio and then TV,
Car,
internet, cars are invented
and
and
the Great Depression came.
and made popular. Yeah, we've had economic depressions, we've had economic booms.
And from the teeth of the Hitler,
Don't forget the satellites.
Crazy. We have satellites.
all satellite.
People were sent to the moon, for crying out loud. Like a lot, you know, even though we didn't talk about that, a lot happened in the course of a short 100 years, right? It was a pretty eventful century of events. And we didn't even get to them all, right? We didn't even talk about television or, you know, the birth of rock and roll or counterculture in the US or a Vietnam War or China or India or anything that happens in Africa.
Should be 8 months semester.
It's you could spend forever. Like there's so much
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend 100 years to learn about the past 100
But
years.
you covered like, you know, 40% of the important things.
Other metals occur.
Because your brain was stuck.
But
Because
you
what?
covered
You
the-
seen Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah.
Brain didn't start.
Oh, if you're the Raven, the three-eyed Raven.
What's your plan for the vacation?
I'm just gonna chill out. That's my plan.
What's your plan?
That's my plan.
Netflix and chill?
Huh?
Netflix and chill?
Yeah.
Netflix.
But like literally, not metaphorically. Okay. I think we've kind of come to an end, or at least we've run out of time. I don't know if we've come to an end, but we've run out of time. So keep in mind, again, if you have a textbook, if you have a physical copy of the textbook, please next time you're in, try to drop it off at the college. You can drop it off either with Deborah and Nav in the books or in the office there, or if you happen to be, if you can't find them, you can always put it in this box here in the classroom, and that's fine. Please return them. That would be nice. Otherwise, I'll get in trouble, and you don't want me to get in trouble, do you? Papers are due end of day Sunday, the final paper, so don't forget to do that. But until then, it has been my pleasure to attempt to instruct you for the past 13 weeks. And well, I think some of it was mine. At least some of it was mine. Yeah, that was my favorite. That's my least favorite thing.
Speaking of
It's
marking,
mine
what happened to
too.
our
Mine
last
is
quiz?
Yeah, it was a bit of a rough one, hey?
Yeah, did you manage to mark it?
I marked it. I posted the grades.
Yeah.
No, I did. Yeah, I did post the grades.
Yeah, you did. Excellent.
Do you have them?
I do. You want it back?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll hand them back. Okay, but until then, we're kind of done on time. Ayushi, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Yeah, I
Got to say, goodbye. You should have posted a, Zoom meeting to say.
no, nobody wants to do
You
that.
might be crying.
Nobody even likes to turn on their camera.
You know?
They're not gonna. Nobody's gonna cry. Nobody's gonna cry. Okay, that is it. Good luck, everyone, with your final papers. Good luck with your other exams that you may have. Yeah, and maybe some of you I'll see you next term, either here or online or somewhere. So, yeah, you're very welcome, Michaela. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I have.
Wait for everyone to say thank you.
No, not everyone wants to say thank you. They don't need to. This is what you pay me for. What's that? What'd you say?
Is it okay if we haven't even started working on the final paper?
Oh, I don't know. I think only you can answer that question.
I'm halfway done.
We are paying for the time, not the education, right?
Well, either way, regardless of what you are or aren't paying for, that is it. I'll see you around, people. Thank you for being part of History 12. The end.
Yeah, I'm not leaving until I get my paper.
Okay.
He's telling the
Okay.
online people.
Bye.